Good morning, friends. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very glad to hear about your activities, and I'm sure that these are the activities which are needed to keep people apprised of what is happening in India. Now, as far as this whole issue of freedom of expression and the related aspects are concerned, where people have been actually one after the other, there are a series of people who have been labeled as anti-national. Many times UAPA Act has been put against them. Charges of sedition have also been put against them. You have already heard one of the major figures in this, our young friend Umar Khalid, who from JNU was has been charged with serious issues. Of course, in the recent times, first, of course, I must say that 2014 onwards, this problem has been very heavy. But a bit of a personal experience, I will also say that when the earlier NDA 1 was in power, even at that time, though Atal Bihari Vajpayee is regarded as the right man in the wrong party, moderate, pleasant, sweet image, despite that, from 1998 to 2004, one could feel heaviness in the air. Especially social activists could not express themselves as freely as they have been doing earlier over a period of time. And of course, after 2014, we have seen that there are a series of such incidents where students, activists, and even senior academics who have been expressing their opinions have been charged with heavy things, heavy legal things, which my colleague panelists will elaborate much more. But two or three things I'll remind. One was this Kanhaiya Kumar, Umar Khalid, and Anirban. Now, what was the basic issue? They were just celebrating, they were having a meeting that death penalty should not be there, and that meeting was converted. Of course, the real story is that some people with the mask came and shouted anti-India slogans. They have never been caught, but Kanhaiya Kumar and Umar Khalid, they were charged. And what happened to Kanhaiya Kumar? We know very well that he was beaten mercilessly right in the court premises. Now, so this was one thing which shook many of us. Then we all know that there was a young research scholar in Hyderabad Central University, Rohit Vemula. Rohit Vemula had formed a Ambedkar circle, and with the new dispensation, he was labeled as anti-national, casteist and anti-national. The minister who hailed from Hyderabad called him casteist, called him anti-national. His scholarship was stopped, and he was forced to commit suicide. Better word, of course, will be institutional murder of such a budding young person. Then we come and we see a series of eminent social activists doing the grassroots work, including people like Sudha Bhardwaj, Gautam Navlakha, Vernon Gonsalves, and 11 of them, Shoma Sen, who were labeled as urban Naxal. See the beauty of the word which they have coined. You are not doing that violence in the remote areas to which Naxalites are supposed to be associated, but you are teaching in academia, or you are a writer, or you are a columnist. So the word coined was urban Naxal to defame them, and to call their ideas as anti-national. Now, of course, this is a heavy word. Any ordinary person, when he hears this, he gets shaken that, oh, that person is talking anti national. So, what is anti national according to them? Anybody who criticizes the policies of the ruling party is anti national. Let me point out, friends, that criticizing the ruling government is not anti national at all. It is one of the fundamental democratic rights that the ruling party should be criticized, not for the sake of criticism, but to ensure that they are able to rectify their mistakes, they are able to improvise upon their policies so that better things can come into picture. So this type of a criticism which was being labeled either through meetings or through writings or through the basic type of ground rule work, came to be popularized as anti-national. That was one. Second, of course, I want to go in bit into a history of India's this whole issue of freedom of expression. We all know that Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, for his writings in Kesari, was imprisoned in Mandale, and later on many campaigns were undertaken, and in that most of the aspects of the freedom movement, the movement which led us to our freedom, in that freedom of expression was one of the basic issues which was always raised. And also this whole issue of sedition, which of course anyway none of such cases have taken place according to me after independence and all that, but even sedition, which Mahatma Gandhi criticized as one of the worst laws which was there, even in sedition, unless it is involved with the act of violence, it cannot be called as sedition. So basically, even in the freedom movement, freedom of expression and criticizing the government was the essential part of the freedom movement. Now, one interesting anecdote I want to tell, which may shock many of us. I hope many of you will be remembering that I think it was 1956 when there was an attempt to make Hindi as the national language for the first time. And that time, there was a huge turmoil, huge opposition, and in the parliament, there was one very tall figure from Tamil Nadu, C.N. Annadurai. C.N. Annadurai openly talked in the parliament that if you want to impose Hindi, we will like to secede, we will like to separate from the country. Now, he made such a big statement, but after that, what happened? When Nehru was going out in the parliament, he crossed CN Annadurai. He gave him a broad smile and passed him further. So this was the spirit in which India's foundations were made. That you are free to criticize, you are free to put your ideas within those particular bounds where it does not lead to violence. Short of violence, criticizing the government is not anti-national at all. Now, today, unfortunately, what has happened? A large section of media, a large section of these particular political activists, they, rather than questioning the government for its policies, are criticizing the opposition for raising the voice against the government policies. The basic essence of democracy is that the government must be taken to task in parliament, in streets, in colleges, in universities, and in every available forum. And the basic idea is that democracy has to be improvised further and further. So, why this so called labeling freedom of expression as anti nationalism? To my understanding, this is because those who are ruling, they do not internally, from their heart, from their soul, they do not believe in Indian constitution. They do not believe in the democratic ethos because they have been using religion as a cover for their politics. We were talking it frankly, Hindu nationalism. Please don't misunderstand. I am not criticizing Hinduism in any way. I am criticizing all those type of nationalisms in the name of Hinduism, in the name of Islam, in the name of Buddhism in Burma and Myanmar, Christian fundamentalism in your America and other places. Wherever religion is used as a cover, the democratic values are pushed back to the margins. And here, the dissent, which is the essence of democracy, is not tolerated. It is tried to be suppressed by multiple mechanisms. And one of the worst cases which we saw in the name of urban Naxal, the outstanding scholars on Dalit issues like Anand Pel Tumre, an outstanding writer on Kashmir issues like Gautam Naulakha, and one of the prominent workers for the plight of Adivasis, Sudha Bhardwaj. These are the three just names I am recalling, but their contribution to the social development, their contribution into the world of ideas, progressive ideas, rooting in democracy is really outstanding. So this, why this is happening, I must say that the even in freedom movement, two type of streams had come up. One type of stream was where the values of democracy, values of liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice were the central part. And that was the basic essence of freedom movement, which first was led by Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and later on Mahatma Gandhi emerged as the undisputed leader of this whole movement. And in this whole movement, we will be surprised to know that even within Congress, even within this national movement, there were differences of opinion. And there, these differences of opinion, they were sorted out through democratic discussions and through democratic debates. On the other side, if you can accept this particular point, I must say, on one side came Muslim League, which initially was a representative body of the Muslim Nawabs, princess, and the landlord. That's what was the initial formation of Muslim League. And similarly, the Hindu Rajas, Zamindars, they initially formed Hindu Mahasabha. Of course, later on, some middle class, elite, upper caste people joined them, and they also gave leadership to that. The classical example is Muhammad Ali Jinnah in Muslim League and Vinayak Damodar Savarkar in Hindu Mahasabha. Why I am bringing them in? Because in their this thing, they hark back to the ancient times. You'll be surprised to know that Muslim League, it said that we are a Muslim nation since the time of Muhammad bin Qasim when he attacked Sindh and occupied Sindh as a king. So from where are they deriving their values? They are deriving their values, the inspiration from a kingdom. And in kingdom, the rule is not democratic. In kingdoms, we are not citizens, we are the subjects, and it is the king who is the primary person ruling. So, similarly, as on this side Muslim nationalism came up, Hindu nationalism went much further than that and said that we are a Hindu nation from times immemorial. And both times immemorial, you say, and I don't know what type of social values were there. There was a society with tribes, there were pastorals, there were agricultural society, there were kingdoms, and every time the type of human relationship that kept changing. And in that, the chief is undisputed. Criticizing the chief is tantamount to tantamount to going against the state. And that's what we understand when you glorify the kings. It may be a Muslim king, it may be a Hindu king. Criticizing them basically means you are playing with your life. You are trying to, and that is what I see is at the root of intolerance in those particular formations where where which are ruled by parties which have uh, religious cover for their politics. And why so? Why so? Now, this is a deeper point I'm trying to make because I think my legal colleague from the legal fraternity he will try to bring it up with the Indian Constitution and different clauses. But the basic point is that when India was transforming because of industrialization, modern education, modern irrigation system, and other transport, communication, etc., etc. At the same time, two other changes were also taking place. These were the changes of reaching of education to Dalits, reaching of education to women, and these are the processes which made the modern India. Now, when these changes were coming up, the religion was being bypassed, and in the formations like what were represented by Bhagat Singh or Ambedkar or by Gandhi, religion was not the guiding principle, guiding cover for the politics of Indian nationalism, which emerged from these particular points. Now, on other side, just I'll give you a single example. This I don't know how it is operating today, etc., etc. In the other type of organizations which are authoritarian in their very nature. If you remember, during freedom movement, one could become the member of Congress by paying 4 annas. I think my new generation may not be knowing that is equivalent to 25 paise. So that was called Chavanni. So one could become a member of that. But in organizations like Muslim League, organizations like RSS, what comes in is what was described by RSS in their this thing that is called Ek Chalak Anuvartita. What is Ek Chalak Anuvartita? That there is a single dictator, single supreme leader who will guide the whole organization. So, right at the root of this politics, if you see, even in the freedom movement, we see that there are parties like Congress, there are organizations like that of Ambedkar, there are organizations like that of Bhagat Singh. Their way of operation may be different. But if we take the major representative of freedom movement, that was Congress, where which was a forum for debate, discussion for the policies to be taken. On the other side, today's biggest organization, which is controlling, which is actually a supra political organization. It is not a political organization, it is supra political. It doesn't just control politics, it controls culture, it controls language, it controls most of the ethos of the society. So, in that particular, the basic principle which was adopted was that of Ek Chalak Anuvartita, means a single supreme leader will guide the whole organization. Now, of course, it may be true that sometimes people like Gandhi, people like Nehru are such towering personalities that they come up and their policies are followed, and many times they become unchallengeable. That is one thing. But in principle, the democratic ethos of criticism remains. And this is what came in our constitution, where freedom of religion, freedom of expression, our right to dissent from the ruling party, they came in a very big measure. So I see a deeper connection between this type of a opposition to dissent, this type of opposition to those people who are expressing their opinions and are suffering for that by being jailed and being given all sort of harassments. So what connection I see, that when politics in the name of religion rules, and you will see the same thing in Pakistan, you will see a similar phenomenon in Myanmar, as this, what sometimes it is called fundamentalism, sometimes it is communalism. That is a technical word. Social scientists may still throw more light on this, the overlapping nature of the word communalism, where the politics is based around communal, religious communal identity. Fundamentalism, where the so-called proclaimed fundamental aspects of a particular religion as interpreted by a group are imposed on the society. But the net result of both is very similar. And what is that? Well, that is the ruling party or the ruling person. And many times they get merged into each other with great amount of ease. They become taller than what the constitution is. They become taller than the state. They become servo serva. Of course, some of these tendencies we did see in Congress when emergency was declared, and people even said, Hemkant Barua famously said, Indira is India and India is Indira. But that, I must say, was the exception to come at one time. Currently, currently, the way things have shaping up, the ruling party has been so presented as if it is a sole repository of Indian nationalism. Let me tell you, it has nothing to do with Indian nationalism. It is totally committed to Hindu nationalism. It never participated in any of the movements, any of the major steps of freedom movement, and it always remained aloof from the movements led by Mahatma Gandhi, which were meant to give us freedom. So this type of in one is that, of course, my understanding is that Their basic idea is to have a number one, authoritarian state, number two, target the religious minorities, number three, to subjugate the Dalits and to keep the women in the secondary position in the society. This is a central agenda of any communal fundamentalist organization in the world. And those particular traits are not open to criticism because here, as a matter of faith, they want to say that this is what is right, and this is visible in most of their actions which they undertake in the society. And that's why, well, I said, the Pandit Nehru can smile at Annadurai even if he's saying that he wants to secede from the country. Here, if people just criticize that demonetization had very adverse effects, or whatever policies, promises have been uh, done this, and late example I'll give you that many young boys have been arrested just for questioning the authority, the information of the chief minister. In Madhya Pradesh, I must tell you, the chief minister declared that he is having COVID, and so one of the participants, one of the citizens said that, why don't please produce a certificate that you are having COVID? And he was arrested. Such arrests today are dime a dozen. Any small reason and they can put you in. And last example which I'll give you, that one of the best movements we have seen in the democratic movement we have seen in the country, one of the best movements which put Indian constitution as its trademark, which put India's preamble as its defining point, Shaheen Bagh movement, anti-CAA movement. All those people who participated in this, they are today being targeted as the ones who instigated the Delhi riots. Now, this is the most funny part, most tragic part. It may be Sharzil Imam, or it may be that girl who's Safura Zargar, who was even pregnant at that time, and her only crime was that she was dissenting from the policy of CAA. CAA has been a big movement, spontaneous movement, peaceful movement, and the leaders of those movements are being targeted today one after the other for their dissent from the government. And this, I think, is a worrying situation. So, in my opinion, what country needs is basically democracy. I understand society can transform itself only through democratic, only through democratic ethos, social movements demanding the rights of weaker sections of society. In a democracy, they are the basic defining points of social change. While politics in the name of religion, it wants to harp on the past. They don't accept the change towards this democratic values. Their basic point is the past. And what is there in the past? At one side, there are kingdoms where there is authoritarianism. On the other side, there are things like Manusmriti, where the equality, where the caste, a graded hierarchy of caste, hierarchy of gender is inherent. And that's where I feel that is somewhere at the core, which gets modified as you go further, and it gets manifested in the form of targeting the people who are trying to have dissent, who are trying to disagree, who are trying to criticize this government for various of its policies. We have recent times suffered a lot. Many of our tall intellectuals, tall social workers, and those who have contributed in the world of ideas, in the world of democratic ethos, they have been made to suffer mainly because of this being labeled as anti-nationals. And the basic point, as I said, is it is not a struggle just of freedom of expression. They not only want to suppress the freedom of expression, they want to wipe away, they want to do away with the democratic values which we have earned with great amount of difficulty through our freedom movement. Religion for them is not a matter of moral values. Religion for them is a identity around which communities are mobilized, communities are made to fight against each other, and a divide like fraternity which has been cultivated over a period of close to a century, that fraternity is uh, fractured because of such policy. So this dissent, there is attack on those dissenters, and punishing these dissenter hides a deeper political process. And deeper political process is the one where the values of Ambedkar, Bhagat Singh, and Gandhi. I want to synthesize the three of them. The values represented by the three of them are to be replaced, are opposed at fundamental level, and authoritarianism as reflected in the golden past. They called it a golden past. Bhagat Singh, Ambedkar, and Gandhi will look for the golden future, where through our efforts we want to make a golden future where all can have dignity and a decent survival in this society. So this is basically is hiding a deeper schism, deeper division between two set of values. One values which will take us to a future better democracy, from a formal democracy towards a substantive democracy. This is on one side, and to attack this, the dominant politics which wants to have a status quo of caste and gender in collaboration with the big corporates who are having a gala time in the present particular situation. So as a solution, what I say, solution is multifarious. This politics has come to be strengthened by spreading hatred, particularly against religious minorities. Number one, by glorifying the past values which are close to those of Manusmriti. So we have to understand these things and try to bring forward the reality of Indian society, which Mahatma Gandhi in Hind Swaraj says that Hindu and Muslims both were here. They were ruling but also collaborating, and Hindus and Muslims both were living under those kings. And further, Jawaharlal Nehru, where in Discovery of India, he says that Indian culture is basically a culture of Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. It's a mixture of Hindu, Muslim, and later on, of course, Christians were small in number. I will like to add that also Christians, Sikh, Jain, Buddhist. So that pluralism, that is what is under stake at a deeper level. So we have to try to see that if we want to have a society where freedom of expression is there, where dissent is valued, and dissent is valued for betterment of society, we need to debunk, oppose, criticize the demonization of religious minorities. We want to come back to the values of Indian Constitution, and it is around defending the Indian Constitution in later and spirit that we can have a society where dissent is a path for development. Thank you very much.